Welcome back, fellas. Domination Tips, reporting right back with our next episode. And guys, if I have to be honest, I got the request to do the explicit video or tutorial guide, whatever, about our library we have in-game. Oh, by the way, I could change my language so it's easier understandable for you. And the researches I had to do to get all of the background informations about this episode now was quite one of the most extensive ones. I had to research about 3 hours. I wrote over here more than 3 papers full of information concerning all researches, the costs, the durations, available in which ages, structures, nomenclatures and something like this. So pretty intense. Therefore I can only recommend you. It is probably a very complex video which is not easily understandable at some parts. I will give you first, for all further questions and all further problems, informations, whatever, the link below the video to our DomiNations Wiki. It's quite in English and it's fan contributed, so it means everyone like you and me, all players, can just provide some information to it and help to complete it. But at the other hand, there is no you can't be sure that every informations are perfectly or correct and that they are right. So I would really appreciate if you have some questions which go on further and which can't be explained by my video, that you can search or use this DomiNations Wikia site also if you have some new topics, or if you find some topics which are currently not dealt or not concerned about in the DomiNations Wikia. You can help to contribute and to fulfill it, to give your own knowledge into the system. But I would really please you if you if you're contributing to the DomiNations Wikia, don't make something which you seems like or which you think is so. So if you provide some information, make sure that they are right, double check them, and only give them or just put them online when you are pretty sure that they are correct, so that all other players can still go on and rely on it. Because currently I have researched, or I have searched for many things at the DomiNations Wikia, and I found pretty much everything. Very special and detailed little pretty things I could not find, but I think 98% of all things I researched were over there, and also all datas and values I figured out at DomiNations Wikia were correct. So let all of us do our best to make it go on that successful. So far for this, I had another concern. Yeah, we have over here my university running. So I got a research which I ordinarily wanted to deal about in the next FAQ video, and it was about the university. I claimed that the university give no experience for its researchers. Some of my subscribers told me that he had taken contact to the support of DomiNations down here, the customer service, and they would have told him that the university give experience points except for Hiawacha. But I'm pretty sure it will give not, and we have a very lucky situation that my university research is now going to end, and therefore I can just show you I'm level 158 and 14,488 experience points I have. I will take a screenshot right over here to make it sure. Here you can see. So in 9 minutes my research will be done, and then we can check whether the value has quite changed, and I'm pretty sure it won't change. But nevertheless, I want to prove it to you. It's the Sultan Saladin research over here, Tank Depot Defender hit points, which runs out in 8 minutes. So if the customer service or my subscriber is right, it should give some experience points. Nevertheless, I'm pretty looking forward to it. I also the video will be quite a little bit longer. The German episode was quite about 50 minutes. I think I don't know whether I can hold this time amount, because in English I'm very fairly worse to explain some things, and there are some complex background informations about the library, so I'm not pretty sure whether I can get to 50 minutes, because therefore it's getting such a long video. I will link you down below the video all ages, because the library has some different stages which are categorized or belonging to their ages. And so if someone is very interested in the Enlightenment Age or in the Industrial Age, he can just instantly jump in. Oh, my phone is empty. instantly jump in and get to the point he's very interested in and has not researched the complete video. At the other hand, I can really only give you a recommendation for watching the complete video, because I figured out that there is quite no stage of the university, so no age in which you don't get any interesting book or any interesting research. So in every age there is at least a minimum of one, if not even many more interesting researches you have to do. We'll also start with a little general brief about the library, which pretty most of your players would are common to and use and know about it. But let's start with a little brief about our current World War, because both of my attacks I was not able to upload to you due to the fact that my shady recording program stopped immediately inside of the attack, and my second attack even completely was gone. We have over here a very strong number 1. He's Atomic Age with Global Age max walls. I will show him to you later. He has level 5, 3 times level 5 defense coalition, so pretty overwhelming. And we only could do 4 stars about him. It doesn't seem like that we can do any more stars about. Then we have enemy number 2, also pretty strong, a little bit lower because of only level 11 Enlightenment Age max out walls. But let me stop talking. I just simply show it to you. I don't think that this base is pretty bad. We figured out with some scouting attacks of lower accounts that we have most of the traps right on top. So we decided to go for a Forbidden City demolition, and then started right over here to get to the mortar, sniper tower, and the high-leveled depots, and destroy them very fast in the pre-attack. So I don't think that we get 5 stars over here, so we will end up with 174 stars. Here we have enemy number 2, also a pretty not bad base layout. You can just get to both town centers pretty easy if you get to the mid chamber. But over here we have very many barbed wires which slow you down instant before coming to the walls. And because we have no spaces over here, it's pretty hard to get even, if you are not using your planes, a hole in which you could rally. So it's hard to attack from the top side. From the bottom side it seems pretty much easier. But in the early attack, or before we did our first attack, we were quite feared of the aspect that many free spaces are inside, and even especially because you can reach from this chamber both town centers. We really expected many traps to be over here, but nevertheless Zeratul, one of my most strongest attackers, managed to kill him in total, so very cool. I got for enemy number 3, who has also 3 defensive coalitions but fairly worse build. Here I attacked. I decided to go from this side, rallying inside. Everything worked perfectly, and then when I got inside, I got only about 1 frame every 10 seconds, which is very low. I couldn't see anything. There was no volume, no music, no sound. I couldn't hear anything, and it was really buggy. Then my recording program completely failed, and when it turned out that 30 seconds later, the attack ordinary run again, I saw that most of my artilleries have gone, most of my troops had gone. In the end, I managed to 5-star him. It was very close, but I managed to 5-star him. But that was really a pain in the ass, because about 20 or even 30 seconds in the mid of the attack, which is really important, I had only a frozen screen. The file that got produced by the recording system was also not usable at all. You couldn't visit it, you couldn't watch it. There was only some message about the data is not able to being used or something like this. And my attack is gone. You see, I have no more attacks, and my second attack isn't even listed. So I already contacted the customer support and got 100 crowns, which is no kind of excuse or anything other, but only we have 3 minutes to go. So remember, 14,488 hit point experience points. Let's see if we get any experience points added. And let's start with our university. I have some general informations for you, and the general informations are: you can build the library in the classical age. It is research, so an economical kind of building, and you can't lose anything if the enemy is attacking it. You are neither losing resources nor any stage of your researches, so don't matter, no problems with losing it. Also, we have some upgrade stages. Ordinary, you only can upgrade it once per age, but there are some exceptions. If you are first building it, you instantly get access not only to 1 level or 1 stage, but to 2. And in the medieval, you can also upgrade it twice. In Industrial Age, you can upgrade it twice, and in the Global Age, you can upgrade it twice. Otherwise, you can only upgrade it like most of the other buildings once per age. Let's come to the nomenclature. Which means that we have a better understanding if I talk about something and you understand what I mean. First, we have over here our level or our stages. I think mainly I will call it stage. And then we have within one stage all time, and that's very similar to all stages, 4 books. And within every book, we have 5 chapters. This means we have per stage 4 books and 20 chapters to research. In total, we have about 10 stages, which means 10 multiplied 4 books. So 40 books in total with 5 stages. This means 200 researches to do in total. Also, we have a structure, a very similar structure, which is pretty like our library, our university, and it is a hierarchical stage-wise structure, which means that the books are depending on each other. So also, nearly similar like to the university, you cannot simply choose one of the books and decide to research for it. You have to start at the very beginning and at least, as minimum, research the first chapter from one book to get within these links or these connections between the books, you can see to the next book which is connected, and then you can research over here, and with researching here the next stage or the first stage or even more, you can unlock the next book. So that's the hierarchical structure I meant. And what is also very interesting, and I personally thought I would know really much about the university, but I recognized that there are some facts which I don't know. And so, for example, the books have some specific colors, and so the colors are intending or they are showing what the books are about. And so you can even anticipate what kind of resources is needed for them. So very often I heard about, let's look over here. So let's take my example. I'm in the Industrial Age and I want to go for the Global Age, but I don't have the Global Age library currently. So I'm really thinking about all of these books are black. I don't know what is the command book, for example, but you can really easily anticipate because you see we have down here a red book. Red stands for offensive power, and you see aviation is quite offense. It's about our planes, and this means it's an offense research. All offense researches take food cost, except for the Industrial Age when the oil gets a big matter. Then most of the researches which are due or depending on oil also cost oil. We see our planes are getting produced, upgraded, and whatever in our at our airstrip, and the airstrip also needs oil. Therefore, this research is needing some oil, and we see a red connection to the command book, which means the command book also is an offense chapter. Then we can get into, we see, okay, generals cooldown times, and from the Industrial Age on, generals cost oil. Therefore, we can be pretty sure that we have some oil costs over here. So you can really anticipate what books will be or what researches will be about from their resources to cost. And therefore, we have some brown books, which are always on the top, which means economic researches. Here, it is a little bit hard. It's not always anticipatable to see which research is to be it will cost. Then we have our defensive researches, which all will cost gold, except for some special ones from the Industrial Age upwards to the Atomic Age that could cost oil. I will make an example later. And we have all red books, which are only offense meaning, and so they are costing food. Also exception in the Industrial Age when the oil gets a big matter, they will cost also oil. Let's see over here. Nationalism is a blue book, so defensive. In the first stage, you would just anticipate to cost some oil, some gold, but then you see bunker and heavy tanks. If you think about bunker and heavy tanks, you quite can see oil is a big matter, and therefore this means that also this research will cost some oil instead of some gold. So my university has finished. You can see, guys, I'm still at 14,488, and now when I click to it, 14,488. Wow, what's that? Okay, so I didn't gain any experience points at all. My citizens have returned, and that's exactly what I told to you. In my opinion, or my experience is that you don't gain any experience, no matter how far you have researched in your university. I will re-put my people in the research now, and I think, or I hope I have proven this value or this fact quite okay now. We have another thing about the library. The costs, yeah, we have some costs in the library which are also a little bit to anticipate. The costs are multiplicatorial, increasing, but stays stage-wise identical. What does this mean? We are starting with some research costs of about 50,000 per chapter in the first chapter, which we unlock in the classical age, and then they are stage-wise multiplicating. So this means in the second chapter of our level or stage 1 library books, we have costs about 100,000, 200,000, and then 400, and at least in the fifth chapter, 800,000 of resources. At the second stage, the first chapter already costs more. There we have 200,000, 400, 600, 800, and 1 million. And there is another trivial side fact. The ordinary, in the first stages of the game, the library only had about 3 chapters per book. The fourth chapter got laterly implemented with some update, and the fifth chapter also got later implemented. But the fifth chapter is now very often some kind of exception, because let's only take an example. We see Enlightenment Age. No, Gunpowder Age research over here. Gunpowder Age, I will later explain, is stage 4 of the university. So level 4 if you are in the gunpowder. And the first stage costs about 500,000. So 500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, and at least 2.5 million. So it's always increasing by the ordinary or by the basic value. We have 500,000 increasing by itself value, 1 million, again increasing by 500,000, 1.5 to 2.5. This is the ordinary structure. But then we have also some very powerful researches. So for example, the new implemented chapter of -50% stable first wave spawn time, and this is some exception which we also have in later ages. And here we don't have the ordinary structure of about 500, 1 million, 1.5, 2 million, but then we are not upgrading to 2.5 million but to 4 million. This means sometimes the last chapter is not increasing by the basic value, but it's doubling the chapter 4 costs. So hopefully you have understood. So therefore, the fifth chapter you cannot always anticipate. If you have any questions about it, or if you are unsure, go to the link I provided to you to DomiNations Wikia. There everything is provided very, very in detail. Then what we have also, we have some durations from stage 1 of the university up to stage, including stage 7. So from the classical age up to the industrial age, every first chapter of every book will last about 4 hours, and then they will increase nearly periodical. So the first researches are lasting about 4 hours, 18 hours, 16 hours, 1 day, 2 days, and they are getting more extensive with every age. So in the industrial age, you are already researching in the last 5th chapter of your books of about, I think, 6 or 7 days. And in total, in the atomic age, when you are, for example, researching the radar chapter, you are getting from 8 hours for the first, no, not 8 hours, 16 hours for the first research, up to 13 days if my informations are correct. And in the Enlightenment Age, the first chapter has also increased, not 4 hours for the first chapter, but 8 hours. So up to the industrial stage, we have quite similar start points of 4 hours, and then it increases. In the German episode, I talked about some translation mistakes we don't have over here, because if you have the game if you are using the game in the English way, in the English language, it's pretty perfect because there are no translation mistakes. So let's go on, guys. Now we will start with our ages we have. I think I have provided all general informations to you. Hopefully there were some quite new informations which you did not already know. Now I have divided up all stages of the library in a subjective way, because I tried to order them in the way I think they have the most priority. So which of the researches makes for myself the most sense? And therefore in stage 1, the classical age, I have highlighted as well as the free companies as well as the reinforcements research. Let's start with the free companies. First we can see classical age, we have 2 brown books, 1 blue, 1 red. This means we have an economical focus in the level stage or in the stage 1 research. Let's go to the Free Companies books. We see chapter 1, mercenary health, mercenary attack, attack health. So in total we can increase our attack of about 30% if I see it right, and health of about 20%. Additional, we can get one more mercenary army. It's sensible to research everything, so here are no chapters which are more to prioritize than other chapters. The reinforcements research is also very sensible. Here you don't have any focuses. You see hidden defenders come from the forest. This means that the cavalry, which is depending on your highest stable, will for all upcoming ages be depending on the forest defenders. So these forest defenders are depending on the stable. Sorry, I mentioned it in the wrong way. Chapter 2, 10% defender attack, also very strong. More hidden defenders come from the forest. This is increasing our forest defenders from ordinary 2 up to 4. Then we have chapter 4, plus 10% defender health and attack. Pretty sensible everything. Now we are coming to the library chapters. Here I marked especially the pottery, because I think the pottery is quite more interesting than the roadways. In the pottery, we have about chapter 2, 3, and 5, the most important things. Chapter 1 is only increasing the resources from fruit trees and gold mines about 5%. And let's be honest, guys, I think there are about 10,000 of resources from each, and that's so little that these 5% are just shitty. You just don't care about it. But Chapter 2, plus 10% chance of finning cider and metal. And like all of the higher players or the experienced players probably can agree with me, trade goods are very interesting and important in the late game especially. Chapter 3, also very interesting. We had 2 additional fruit trees as well as chapter 5. So in total 4 additional fruit trees, which makes also in total the amount of trade goods we can get higher. So pottery is also really sensible. Roadways, I have only marked chapter 1, 3, and 4. Chapter 1 and 3 are pretty similar. You can get in total additional 10 roads. And level chapter 4 is about plus 20% road health bonus for a town center, which is also pretty sensible for World War as well as your ordinary base. But otherwise, I don't think that the road income it's quite okay, yes, but the road income is so low that if you do one multiplayer attack, one good one, you even have got more gold than you get from this 10% addition. Yeah, let's go on. Also, it's still Classical Age, we have the next 4 books, which are also belonging to stage 1 research. There we have exploration, watchtowers, machinery, and cast iron. Here we see 2 blue books, which means a defense focus. Here I highlighted the machinery research, because I'm really huge fan of the catapults, later on mortars called. And here you can get, all of them are quite interesting. You can't miss anything, I think. Catapult attack, catapult health, 1 limit, catapult health, catapults attack 10% faster, which in total means that their total attack is increased. In the German episodes there were quite some confusings, because I said that this explanation is quite unsensible, because many players obviously seem to not understand that faster attacking will in total result in a higher damage, because the damage which is in the game is getting explained by DPS, which means damage per second. So it's a relation between damage or the basic damage and the time, the cadence. And if you're increasing the cadence by so if you're increasing one of the factors of the multiplication, you will even get a higher end result. And this means if you are increasing whether either the cadence or either the basic damage, the outcome will be higher. Therefore, the cadence also increases the total damage. So really important research machinery. As second, I marked the watchtowers, also pretty interesting. We get 2 additional towers. We get 20% additional tower attack and 10% additional tower health. Nothing to prioritize, very important to research all of them. Then we have also explorations and cast iron. I mark cast iron as really important, because you get shock infantry attack, which is not that important, but you get ranged infantry attack. And I'm not pretty sure how you are playing, so it's really depending on everyone, each individual style of playing. If you are using your infantry, chapter 1 and chapter 2, 4 and even chapter 5 may be interesting for you if you are using motorcycle riders, also chapter 3, but because I'm pretty sure that nearly everyone, I don't know anyone who is not using ranged infantry at all. I think chapter 2 is the most important one, and all of the other chapters are now depending on your own game style. I for myself decided to research for chapter 2, and when I have done research chapter 2, I decided to go for another book, but you can do it on your own, so it's pretty subjective. At least we also have the exploration, and at the exploration I only marked that chapter 1 and 5 could be interesting. It's pretty problematic because of the hierarchical structure. You have to research 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to chapter 5, so the more uninteresting chapters like 2, 3 and 4 you can quite not skip, because of the structure I already explained to you. Chapter 1, interesting, 10% cost refund to clear forests. In the beginning this might not be very interesting, but in the late game you will see all of the forests are equally costing 6 million of gold, and 600,000 of refunds are not that much, but if you are getting 7 or 8 times this refund, it is quite okay. It is definitely worth to research because it is not costing that much. But then we also have at least the +1 gold mine limit, which is interesting because we have more chance to get some metal. Then we have also minus 50% cost of debris clearing, which is really pointless at all. Then we have +5% chance to find an animal when clearing debris, is also really ridiculous, I think. Chapter 4, +10% chance to find an animal when clearing debris. Again, same thing. So we have quite ended and already told 26 minutes, so I don't want to hurry up, but because I want to explain it in detail for you. Hopefully we are getting below 1 hour and my recording program will not stop from its own automatically. We get to level 2, which is the first level or stage you can get by upgrading to the medieval stage of the library. Here I have marked pretty equal ramparts as well as chivalry. Both are pretty interesting for myself because I'm always upgrading my walls. Ramparts was more interesting. Here we get 3 times about 5 additional wall parts, and then we get additional 10% wall and gate health and town center health. So in total, research everything, don't skip anything of this. Then we got to chivalry. Over here we have pretty individual or subjective research again, because if you are not playing tanks at all like I do, they might be minor interesting, these researches, but nevertheless I would recommend to do all of the researches, because then you can get to the artillery attack, which is very interesting to all of you, I think. Then we get also supply truck healing and supply truck healing 2 times, but therefore you have to research quite everything. We also have the crop rotation and the commerce, which are pretty unspectacular. If you have problems with gathering or gaining your resources, then you can research it, but otherwise there's also no problem if you decide to research ramparts and chivalry and then tell yourself, okay, I want to go on with more senseful defense or offense researches. I first upgrade my library to stage 3, which is also medieval, and research for more offense or defense researches before I do this more pointless economical researches. At crop rotation we only have being about our farms, 2 more farms, more harvest from our farms, and more mill health. I only think that the chapter 4 mill health could be some kind of interesting, but the other things are quite senseless. If you are playing the Kremlin in the Industrial Age, you could be interested in getting more farms because they are by destruction spawning some infantry guys, but it's only a minor aspect. Commerce quite the same, but only about our caravans. We get 2 more caravans, about 10 more market health, and 2 times 5% more caravan income, so pretty pointless. Hope you have understand what I meant with it. Level 3, we are still in the medieval age. Here I have marked at level 3 the tactics and ballistic research. Is my phone still loading? Yes, it is. Battles, tactics, and ballistics. I focused first on battle tactics, but I think both are equal and both are very interesting for you to research. Over here, chapter 1, plus 20% of duration of war tactics. Pretty interesting. Plus 10% damage of healing and healing of tactics. So it's depending, or it is affecting all tactics, +1 war tactics capacity. Most interesting to get to chapter 3. Then chapter 4 and chapter 5 are not that interesting. I'm in detail not even sure whether you can still research them, because the betrayal is a tactic you are first gaining in the Enlightenment Age, and the decoy you are getting in the Industrial Age access to. So I think the costs could even be that high that you quite cannot upgrade or research it in the Medieval Age. Nevertheless, I would even not recommend to you, because why should you already research when you even cannot use it? Then let's go on to the ballistics. Here we have engineer health, which is pretty not interesting. The most interesting chapters should be 2, 3, and 5, where we get reduces artillery troop space from 10 to 9, reduces supply truck troop space from 8 to 7. Wow. In English, very many of the words are some kind of tongue breakers. It reduces supply truck troop. Okay, so chapter 4 also engineer attack, more I think minor interesting, and chapter 5 artillery attacks 10% faster. Same like at the mortars, we have a multiplication of basic damage and of cadence. If you are just increasing one of the factors in a multiplication, the end result will getting higher. So if you're increasing the cadence over here, so that the artillery, or even depending on your research, if you have cannons, here is cannons meant, or even ballistas, not matter. If you are increasing the cadence, the total damage also will increase. So definitely research the complete ballistics chapter. Then we have as next important chapter the fortification. Here we get 10% additional garrison health, 10% garrison defender attack, 1 more garrison, 10% garrison defender health, and at least minus 50% garrison first wave spawn time. I think the 5th chapter is quite the most important about that. Then we have the zeal. I hope I call it right. Zeal. The zeal research, where we get some additional boosts about our blessings, and in total I marked this chapter as pretty obsolete, because you don't have to do it, but in the end you get some interesting things. First, you get 10% more blessing power, is okay. 50% more duration, also okay. Chapter 3 is pretty unsenseful. You get unlocks a blessing that calls hidden defenders from the forest. In total, this means to affect our forest defenders. In our forest, some tanks or even cavalry, like I already told you, are spawning when the enemy's attacks, depending on your highest depot. So in my case, some industrial tanks will spawn, but very often these tanks are getting done by enemies with their airplanes. So no matter whether there are 4 tanks or even 8 planes, they are all immediately getting taken with some planes, but you have to pay some, I think, 4 cider and 4 metal, and in total I think this stupid blessing isn't worth at all. But we have to go on, because there are more interesting blessings, such as the tactics training blessing, which makes you for 3 hours speeded up tactics training. Very interesting. Chapter 5 unlocks a blessing that rearms traps triggered in battle, especially if you are at higher ages like me probably. When all of my traps are getting triggered, I have to pay about 250-300,000 of gold, which is pretty a pain in the ass, because if the enemy already robbed some kind of resources from you, the costs of the rearming traps are adding to them, and so in total you can easily get up to 600-700,000 costs of gold when an enemy was successful at your base. But if you have these blessing active, this rearmoring trap, how is this? Rearms trigger traps blessing. If you have this active, for 3 attacks, all of the traps which are getting triggered automatically getting rearmed. The problem about this is currently this blessing was deactivated, so it's not anymore in the game, but the developers have promised to re-implement it later. I'm very looking forward to get it. So I think we got through. Now we are getting to the Gunpowder Age. In the Gunpowder Age we have I messed it up. We have in the Medieval Age, and first a commercial, so an economic, and then an offense focus. In the Gunpowder Age we have in defense focus, you see by these 2 blue books. Of total 4 books, and I marked partisans as well as engineers as very interesting, but banners research should be your most prioritized research, because it's all about our rallying. We get minus 5% seconds to rally cooldown, which means in total I think we only have 30 seconds of total rally cooldown. If we are Germans, we can decrease to 25 seconds, plus 100% rally length or duration you get in chapter 2, which is also pretty cool, because your troops are moving faster, and it also looks to me, I'm not quite sure, as if their cadence would be increased only slightly, but I think during the rally commands they are shooting faster, I'm not pretty sure. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 are both similar. You get 2 times plus 15 seconds in total battle length. Pretty cool. And Chapter 5 is most interesting. You get 15 additional seconds to the quick victory time. This means you don't have to do the quick victory within 60, but more within 75 seconds, which gives you more place for strategical movement within the early game or within the early attack. As second most interesting, I could not decide. Engineering and partisans are both very interesting. I decided to go for engineering because at the engineering, all of the researches are quite interesting. We get more caltrops, more spike traps, more ambush, more spike and more caltrop traps. I don't think that I have to explain it. You just understand what I mean. Then we also have the partisans research. Over here we get 4 additional defenders from our town center. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous because there are coming some infantry guys from your town center which are depending on your highest garrison. And if you probably know, the infantry guys are the most unspectacular defenders because they are most often getting blown away before they could deal any damage. Chapter 2, plus 20% defender health. Pretty cool because I'm pretty sure it will affect all of our defenders. Chapter 3, 4 more defenders from town center, so pointless again. Chapter 4 plus 10% defender attack. I also think this is quite sensible because I don't see any links that only special defenders are affected. I think all of the defenders we have are getting affected. And Chapter 5, very cool. Minus 50% stable first wave spawn time. And over here again we have some kind of exception in the 5th chapter. Let me see. We are in the Gunpowder Age, and we have costs of about 500,000, 1 million, 1.5, 2 million. And because of this 5th chapter, it's getting so powerful. The chapter is not costing of ordinary 2 million, 2.5 million. It is costing of the doubled amount of the Chapter 4. So instead of 2.5, 4 million gold. These exceptions also show you very strong researches, because ordinary researches just do the ordinary structure like 500, 1 million, 1.52, 2.5 million, and very strong researches are doubling the amount. At least we have the Hounds research, which is quite okay, but not that prioritized or not that important. We get plus 5% resources from hunting. Wow, that's so spectacular. From hunting a rabbit, I think you get about, 1,200 gold, and with this increase you get 1,360. Completely ridiculous. Why are you doing this? I'm not quite sure. Chapter 2, plus 20% chance of finding fur and leather. Very cool. Most interesting because especially at my base I'm very often using leather for my oil blessings. Chapter 3 increases chance of finding bears and boars. Quite okay. Increase the maximum number of stacks is also pretty cool, but I don't think that interesting. Increases the maximum number of animals by 1. In total, I think the Chapter 2 is the most interesting. If you skip and head for another research later on after doing Chapter 2, I think it's pretty okay. Oh, we go on. We have come to the Enlightenment Age, and in the Enlightenment Age, I have to tell you guys, this is, I think, a little example or a little exception, because in the Enlightenment Age, I think all books are very interesting, and you can't skip any chapter in total. What you only think is a little bit minor interesting, but only a little, is Chapter 5 of the Leadership. But so I will start with the chapter or with the book I think is most interesting. But again, guys, this is only subjective. If you are going for another book that's quite okay, all of the Enlightenment books at stage 5 of the university are really interesting. I got first for the Standing Army, because over there I got 2, 3, 5 and additional time 5 more troop capacity, which means in total plus 15 troops, which is really cool, because then you can just upgrade your barracks one time in the Enlightenment Age, which means plus 15 additional troops, and then you can research additional 15 troops, which in total makes a troop capacity increase of 2 ages instead of only 1. Chapter 4 is also very powerful. All of our barrel troops, such as how are they called? Bombards, ranged infantry, tanks, cavalry, whatever, are all getting plus 10% health and attack. Very strong. Or even our healing cards are getting a 10% healing boost. So very strong, the Standing Army chapter. It's the Standing Army book. It's one of my most favorized researches of all. Then we also have the Citadels, which I did next. Over here we get 10% additional ballista tower health. With ballista tower it's meant, we see it's the blue box, so defensive. It cannot mean our ballista units from the barracks, so the ballista towers which are getting cannon towers later on are meant redoubt health, castle health, redoubt attack. Ballista tower attacks 10% faster. Here again we are at a multiplication. If you are increasing one of the factors of a multiplication, the end effect is getting higher, and in this multiplication you are multiplying the cadence with the basic damage and you are increasing the cadence, so also the ballista towers will in total have a stronger attack. Therefore I went for citadels. You can't even skip any of these researches. I would also recommend to do all citadels researches. Then I headed for the banking research, but you could also do for the leadership researches. At the banking we get very strong chapter 1, 3 and 5, where we get in total 3 times 2 additional trade goods for our storehouse. Pretty powerful. Chapter 2, plus 20% diamond chance for 3 and 4 star wins in multiplier battles. Also cool. Chapter 4, plus 40% of storehouse health. This is minor interesting, but also cool if you can't get robbed that easy. At least we also have the leadership research or book, and I can only sell its last but not least, because it's also very powerful. We get 10% additional general's health. Gives the generals a defender retinue on defense. This is getting pretty powerful later on in the global age. We will see chapter 3, train a second general using oil. That's very cool, because over here we get our second general no matter whether for offense or defense purposes. Chapter 4, 10% additional general attack, and chapter 5 plus 15% general attack against other generals. This is minor interesting, I think, because in my cases I always try to care about that generals are not fighting against each other, so that my ranged infantry are already taking out enemy generals before they can head for each other. But no matter, the Enlightenment Age is pretty interesting, and we are still going on. And we have still already come to the Industrial Age. Again, the Industrial Age has 2 stages of upgrades, so it's a little bit exception. Again, at the Industrial Age, I have marked the nationalism and the savings as most interesting. You could probably head for some other chapters, but I also was interested in the savings. We see at the Industrial Age an economical focus again, because we have 2 brown books at this level 6 stage. And let's get into nationalism. Over here we see first it's a defense chapter, but in the Industrial Age the oil gets a big matter, therefore it's quite some kind of exception. You are nevertheless that it's a defense research, not paying gold for it but oil, and we get 10% bunker health, which is totally ridiculous. I think chapter 1 and 5 are totally ridiculous. Let's see about our bunkers. Are not shooting buildings. They only have about, I have researched everything and some blessings active, so 4,500 hit points in total. If you are not if I would not have researched it, they would have probably about 900 hit points less. In total, guys, this is quite... You pay very, very much oil for getting some increased hit points, which are ridiculously low. So I can only recommend to you, if you are using your oil, if you are short on oil, or if you are using oil at better other ways, just skip the 5th chapter. It costs you about 90,000 oil, where with this 90,000 oil you can pretty good upgrade 2 generals or even your planes, something other. But if you have too much oil like I had, and if you're getting robbed very often, then you can just waste it over here. But I think the 5th chapter is not very sensible. Also the 1st chapter, but chapter 2... plus 1 maximum number of heavy tanks spawned from bunker is okay. Plus chapter 3, 1 more bunker limit. That is very strong. And chapter 4, plus 10% heavy tank defender attack. I think chapter 2 is also some kind of pointless now, because if we see at our... bunkers, my bunkers, you have to remember, I remind you, the Acropolis is affecting my bunkers, therefore my values are a little bit shortened. I have only additional waves time 48 seconds. Ordinary it should be about 54 seconds, I think so. In total you nearly wait about 1 minute to get an additional tank. Now if we are thinking to an attack is only lasting about 3.5 minutes, so in total one bunker can only spawn about 3 tanks if it gets not destroyed. And when a tank is getting spawned, he immediately heads up for enemy units and very often getting destroyed. This means most often you only have 1 tank at the battlefield. So increasing this number of tanks at the battlefield by another one is pretty senseless, because most often the tanks are dying because a second one could even be spawned. Therefore, chapter 3 and chapter 4 are the most interesting over here. Then we have the savings. We have also heavy weaponry, which some guys might be interested in, but this is very subjective again. I will tell you later. The savings, I think, are very interesting for everyone, because everyone can need some savings and using his vault, especially when upgrades are getting more intense and more cost intense. Then you should have some savings like I do. I have always in my vault about 735,000. If I come close to my next wall and I don't have enough time, so I have to get offline, I'm just clearing my vault and having the next piece of wall then I can go offline and don't have that much of gold and resources to be robbed. The savings chapter we can get at chapter 2 and 4. Additional 100,000 capacity. Then chapter 1 is really interesting because you can generate interests after 24 hours, and I was really interested what these interests mean. In total, I think in German it's quite, again, some translation mistake, because in German there also stands interest, but in German interest is quite another word. Interest, I don't know whether you have understood, means some kind of bonus percentage. So if you have stored 100,000 of gold inside and you're waiting for 24 hours, you get 5% of bonus. So I don't know how to call it. Probably interest is already the correct word in English. In German, it's quite not. Chapter 3, your vault can store 6,000 oil, and with Chapter 5, you can increase it by 8,000 oil. Putting oil in the vault is only interesting for me when I'm heading for big upgrades, such as the airstrip or something like this. Then we also have the drilling chapter. For me, the drilling chapter was really interesting. Probably you are not interested in. Therefore, I will but nevertheless, I will head first for the drilling chapter, because everyone can get some advantages by it. The heavy weaponry, you are only getting advantages if you are just playing these units, so it's really subjective. Drilling chapter, it's all about our oil drill towers, I think they are called. Chapter 1, plus 20% oil well and refinery health. This is pretty cool, because in World War you can just place them to the corners and get them more hit points, and also they are getting robbed in the ordinary game more hard from enemies if they have to destroy them. Chapter 2, plus 10% oil well production. This is very cool. Chapter 3, one additional oil well limit. Chapter 4, plus 20% oil gain from oil sleeps. This is so senseless. Chapter 4 you can skip, but you cannot, because Chapter 5 is again really interesting. So research all of the chapters is my recommendation. Then we get to the heavy weaponry, and here we have some pretty strong researches, but I only can recommend to you, you do these researches if you are interested in playing these units, or even if you have too much oil and don't know where to put or to waste it. Because otherwise, why should you research your machine guns, saboteurs or heavy tanks when you even not are playing them? I mean, these chapters are costing very much of oil. Don't only research to have them researched. We get some additional 10% twice machine gun health. So no, one-time attack and one-time health. Okay. Then we get plus 10% saboteur health. Very interesting chapter 3 and 4, which increase splash damage to the attack of our heavy tanks, and which reduces the troop space from 25 to 24. So I think also all 4 chapters at the first industrial stage could be interesting. Heavy weaponry and only if you are playing with factory troops. Then we are getting to the stage 7, and at the stage 7 we have really ridiculous chapters. We have a defense focus, you can see by 2 blue books now again, and I have marked the the aviation as well as the air defense, both very interesting chapters. No matter for which chapter you are prioritizing or aiming first. Air defense is all about our air defense. So you get in total 2 times 10% more attack, 2 times 10% more health, and 1 additional air defense. So in total you can get 3 air defenses. Definitely research everything. Everyone who is in the industrial age or even higher and got raped by some enemy air units know what I mean. Then we have aviation. It's a red chapter, so it's all about our offense planes. Here you can get 10% additional health, for our triplanes. Then you can get 10% more attack for our bombers or airships. Then you get one more capacity, which is very important for our airstrip and our air units. Chapter 4 is again triplane. No, it is first triplane more health, so plane health, and in total we get aircraft health. This aircraft health is unspecific, I think, and the triplane health is specific. So you can increase the health only of your planes by 10% and then again by 10%. But this last 10% of Chapter 5 are also affecting our transporters and bombers. Really important. The next two chapters we have internationalism and negotiations are very uninteresting. I think both of them are mostly interesting if you are heading for very high medals and even league bonuses. So if you are above 2000, probably even only above 2400, they could be interesting. Otherwise, I would recommend to you, skip negotiations completely. Don't even research anything if you are not high at medals. Let's get to internationalism first, because I think internationalism will give only a very slightly and very unimportant boost to everyone, but negotiations is only bringing something to you if you are high at medals, only then. Chapter 1, plus 10% league, food and gold battle rewards. Pretty obvious what we are talking about. If you have your little ship over here and it's getting daily to you to give you your resources and even trade goods, depending on the league you are quite in, then you can just increase. Oh no, we are at league, food and gold battle rewards. No, it is quite not. Sorry, that was one of my faults. If you are getting to the battle and attacking an enemy, then you have done the enemy, and if you have won, you get some rewards but also depending on your league, and you can influence that by this research. Sorry for this mistake. Then we have +1 trade good reward from the league boat. Over here we have, when your league boat is daily or even all 22 hours, depending on your research, getting to your dock, you get 1 additional trade good. Chapter 3, league boat arrives 1 hour sooner. Over here we have, the league boat gets sooner to you and brings you the trade goods which you have already increased. Chapter 4, 10% league oil battle rewards, also same like on top, but now for the oil. And Chapter 5, league food gold battle rewards. So in total, 20% increase for our gold and food battle rewards from our league depending system. Then we also have our negotiations. Like I told you, the negotiations are pretty unsensible. They are costing very much of gold. I think 1.1 million, 2.2, 3.3, 4.4, and something about 6.6 million. I'm not really sure. Let's see about... Yeah, it should be about... So it's definitely some millions of gold, and you are only getting additional hours for your peace treaties. In total, because I'm not high at medals, I'm always crashing my peace treaties. I'm not using them at all. And so guys, if you are also you can pretty much use your gold better in investing in other things. So you could skip negotiations. Yes, well, we are going on and we are coming to the not completely last age, the previous last age. I don't know how it's called. We are coming to the global age. The global age again is a little bit exception or special. We get again 2 stages and so 8 books to upgrade. We have to upgrade our library so 2 times. And what I have marked, the problem now is I'm still in the industrial age. I have no experience values with all of these researches. So it could be that I might be not very correct with all of them. If there are some atomic or even global age players who could contribute or even fulfill my informations, I would be really happy about. You can just place a comment if something which I'm mentioning or which I try to anticipate is not right. So what I have marked over here is there are pretty interesting researches, all of them. I could not make any difference between heritage, resistance and command. So it's again pretty subjective what you are going for. We see again 2 red books. So we have an offense focus at the stage 8 of our university. Let's start topwards with the heritage research. Here we get first increase of offensive powers, wonder powers of pre-atomic wonders by at least 10%, which is pretty I don't know. I'm not sure what they are meaning. What means at least 10%? Are there more than 10%? Why did they not definite them in specific? I'm not quite sure. Then chapter 2, increase the economic, and chapter 3, the defensive wonder powers of all of our pre-atomic wonders by at least 10%. Chapter 4, reduces wonder cooldowns of pre-atomic age wonders by 2 hours, minus 12 hours for the Eiffel Tower. So all guys which are probably using, like me, the Colosseum or even the Terracotta Army, the Brandenburg Gate, you don't have to wait 24 hours. You only have to wait 22 hours if you have researched Chapter 4. The Eiffel Tower gives you all 7 days a peace treaty, a free one, so you don't have to wait 7 days, but only 6.5 days. Chapter 5, I think you can pretty skip and don't have to pay for it because reduces wonder swap costs by 33%, is pretty senseless. Only if you are not satisfied with your wonders you can research, otherwise I would skip it first and head for other more important researches. Resistance is a very strong defense research if you know how to place them. Very often I see enemies having all of their defense buildings, sometimes even together at the outside of the base. That's so kind of stupid. It's perfectly like serving the enemy some of your heavy tanks at the silver tablet, or I don't know how it's called. Because if you have your factories, let's get first for the research. Chapter 1, barracks produce shock infantry when getting destroyed. The whole resistance chapter is about some economic or even some other buildings which have no common defensive meaning, and they are getting defensive or even strategical defense meanings by producing troops when they are getting destroyed. So we have the barracks producing infantry, and I think they are depending on your highest garrison. Then you have your war academy producing light tanks when destroyed, and they should be depending on your highest stable. Armory produce Blackwatch when destroyed, so this is pretty uncommon because Blackwatch are offensive units and not defense units, so probably the Chapter 3 research is not depending on my command post or something like that, because we don't have any other ranged infantry in defensive. Therefore the Chapter 3 I think will depend on our blacksmith or armory researches. Then we have again Chapter 4, factory produce a heavy tank when MK2 when destroyed, so the Chapter 4 the factories are depending on our highest bunker, and Chapter 5 will produce a Flampanzer when our mercenary camp gets destroyed. In total, very strong, but now I see very many enemies which have their factories completely together at the outer side. So you only have to use 2 of your planes or drop 1 single artillery, 1 infantry guy to destroy both of the factories, then use 1 betrayal and get 2 heavy tanks. That's so absolutely ridiculous. If you do this, or if you do so in your base, I would rather or further recommend you don't research resistance at all. It will weaken your base more than it helps you. So let's get on to the command book, I think. Yeah, we are at the command book. Yeah, because I think the warfare book again is some kind of subjective. At the command book we see it's red, so offense book, but it's again about our generals, so it will cost some oil. First, reduces generals cooldown by 1 hour. Pretty cool. When you get generals are getting destroyed, no matter whether an offense or defense meaning, you can get them 1 hour earlier back. Chapter 3 the same. Chapter 2 upgrades retinue defenders to Gatling guns, which is really strong. I don't know whether you know, but Gatling gunners are using suppression on enemies. Suppression means enemies can move slower and attack with decreased damage. So they are some kind of moving or even moving barbed wires, these Gatling gunners, and they are very, very strong against enemy tanks and enemy infantry, as well as enemy generals. Chapter 4, really interesting. But adding to our Enlightenment Age research, we can even get a third general, no matter whether offense or defense purposes. Chapter 5 reduces general oil training costs by 10%. Also pretty cool, but in total it's only a minor interesting chapter, because training a general will only cost about 400 up to 700 oil, I think, if you are talking about the second general. The first trained general is never costing you some researches, but second and third generals are costing to you, and this reduces are only a little bit. Then we are coming to warfare, pretty interesting and strong chapter, but again, if you are not playing these factory units, it makes pretty much no sense to spend or waste, better to say, your oil for them if you are not using. Chapter 1, plus 25% machine gun damage against